Skeptics of Reddit, what is the one conspiracy theory that you believe to be true? That anti-dandruff shampoos temporarily get rid of dandruff but somehow dry your scalp out even more over time so it worsens your dandruff when you stop using it. I believe Area 51 was a base for building and testing new top secret aircraft. When the government denied its obvious existence, it took on a lot of interest from the conspiracy theorist world. The US government now works to maintain the mystery around the base in order to maintain the focus of the conspiracy theorist community and distract them from the actual things going on elsewhere. I'm not sure this is so much a conspiracy theory. Anyone who's not tinfoil hat nuts knows it's just an Air Force base where they test their new jets. The government obviously aren't going to admit it, so just let people think what they like. Honestly, I'm not normally one for these, but I can't help but believe, when faced with the overwhelming evidence, that King of the Hill was cancelled due to Dale's theories being uncomfortably close to the truth. That aliens know we're here, and potentially visit the Earth from time to time. Now, while there is definitely life on other planets, just think statistically about how many planets there are. It's gotta happen more than once, right? I used to seriously doubt that aliens actually came here. It just doesn't make much sense. The main problem I saw was that there would be no logical motive for aliens to visit us but not want any direct contact. That's like going to a party, but sneaking around outside rather than going in. A while ago, however, someone else on Reddit pointed out that there are tribes deep in the Amazon rainforest who have never contacted the outside world. In fact, it's actually illegal to visit them. They're being preserved and observed, but primarily preserved. What that fellow Redditor was suggesting was that there may be some type of advanced alien civilization who know we're here, but avoid direct contact in order to preserve us and our way of life. Sure, we're talking pretty unimaginable technologies here, but then, if you brought one of those Amazonian tribesmen out and told him we can get to the moon, and talk with anyone we want in the world, that would just blow his mind. TLDR. Aliens know we're here, but they avoid contact in order to preserve us. It's not a conspiracy. We're told to design that way. You put heat generating components near heat sensitive components so they degrade and break. The trick is to design them close enough to break, but far enough to not break under warranty. I knew it. That Harvey Milk's death was about more than his being gay. Harvey Milk and Mayor George Moscone were part of the more left-wing faction in San Francisco politics that wanted, among other things, to figure out a solution for the rent increases that were pricing long-time residents out of the city. Other members of the Board of Supervisors, like Dianne Feinstein, were quite liberal by national standards but were firmly in the pocket of real estate developers. When Dan White quit his post as a member of the board, it meant that they lost one of their most pro-business members, and since Moscone was going to get to appoint White's successor, they'd end up with someone who was really strong on the anti-gentrification side instead. Since the board was already closely split, this would represent a critical realignment in city politics. When the real estate developers and the police association, who were among former police officer Dan White's strongest supporters, they had meetings where they offered him various things if he'd try to get his old job back. He agreed, and Moscone appeared to be considering it initially, but Milk went to Moscone and jammed this idea up. After this, White shot Milk and Moscone. Dianne Feinstein replaced Moscone as mayor and used that position to appoint more moderates to the empty seats on the council. The chief of police, who was well liked by the gay community but roundly hated by his own rank and file, was fired. Dan White was given 7 years in jail for a double murder, served 5, and today a one-bedroom apartment in San Francisco rents for $3,500 a month. There isn't enough hard evidence to really accuse anyone of anything, and yet it's breathtaking how all these big power players seem to get what they wanted because of the actions of a lone nut. I'm a fan of the lost cosmonaut theory, the idea that the Russians were cutting a lot of corners to be the first in space, and so Yuri Gagarin wasn't the first man in space, just the first to make it back alive. On its face, your argument seems reasonable, until you stop and consider the PR coup the US would have had if they ever got wind of something like that coming from Russia. Same reason why you'd know the moon landings were fake, because of the PR coup Russia would have had showing it was faked. That the BBC brought on Chris Evans to host the new Top Gear knowing full well that everyone would hate him. Then, once they replaced him with someone better for the next season, People would compare the new host to Chris Evans and not Jeremy Clarkson, so people would like the new Top Gear more. Hot dogs are sold in packs of 12. Hot dog buns are sold in packs of 8. If you want enough hot dogs to go with buns and vice versa, you have to buy 2 packs of hot dogs and 3 packs of buns. Otherwise you're left with some useless leftovers. I'm on you. Hot dog mafia. Different regions, different brands, and different countries package hot dogs in different quantities. In various places you might find them in packages of 5, 6, 8, 10, or 12, or any all of those. That doesn't mean the entire world gets them packaged the same way. One of the greatest scenes in Father of the Bride is when George explains the annoyance of this whilst removing the superfluous buns. Always cracks me up. That Smash Bros conspiracy where they already have the characters they want for the new game picked out, but they let us vote to make us think we have some power. Well done. It's called community engagement. Smash Bros is way more about advertising than I think people recognize. It's literally the reason Fire Emblem caught on in America. Women's pants don't have usable pockets so they have to buy purses. I have a few female friends that buy men's skinny jeans just to have the pockets. It's very possible that we shot down Flight 93. I was in the Air Force from 08-14 as a crew chief. During I met multiple people that were stationed at Langley AFB in DC that said we definitely scrambled F-16s that day from that base, and some of them came back with less armament than they took off with. It's horrible to think we would do this, but it does make sense. 2 planes have hit the towers, 1 on the Pentagon, and now you got a plane that is not responding to any callbacks. What do you do? Again, it's horrible, but in my opinion that plane has got to come down. If all this is true though, the skeptic in me is surprised the length at which the government has gone with the stories of cell phone calls, heroics, the movie and such. I understand Langley is not geographically located in DC, but given its vicinity and importance, the district is commonly used as its reference point. Langley is commonly referred to as the tip of the sphere, and most of the Air Force's central intelligence is based there. As I said, I am, for the most part, a skeptic of the possibility of this. That is what I believe OP called for. I am just saying of all the conspiracies out there, this is one I am not as quick to dismiss, due to personal references that I have encountered. While I do currently own tinfoil in my household, none of which are in any form of headgear, I want to thank everyone concerned about my well-being and safety, and would like to confirm I've had no run-ins with any secret government agencies as of yet. I will keep you posted. My personal level of concern may rise given how this Trump thing plays out. Fellow AF guy here. The debris field was 30 miles long. We definitely shot that bee down. I've heard similar stories through the grapevine. I'm just a random guy on the internet with anecdotes, but the 30-mile figure was given to me by PA National Guard folks who worked on the cleanup and recovery effort. A cursory look at Wikipedia does not seem to support that figure. Call me paranoid, but I'm a subscriber to the idea that we're being spied on at any moment. The NSA can tap into my camera and microphone on my phone and observe me. It's not that they would want to observe me, but I think they can do that to anyone. This OP asked about theories. I think you posted a fact. Lip balm temporarily makes your lips feel moisturized and soft, but dries out your lips over time so you end up buying more. Keep hydrated y'all. It's a great way to prevent chapped lips. 2 liters a day is the recommended amount, but varies based on age, weight, activity levels, etc. This is absolutely true. I needed to use some for dry lips in grade 5. I've been using it daily since. That was 25 years ago. That Michael Jordan was suspended by the NBA for gambling and they covered it up as his baseball era. The NBA had too much to lose tarnishing Jordan's name. I thought he just went to play basketball with animals against aliens to save the world. That RNGians.com is rigged. I know they're rookies, but WTF is the chance of missing 4 60% shots in a row? I bet my left testicle that any shot where the chance is displayed below 85% might as well be a 10%, and I don't care what you say, you can't convince me otherwise. Guys, I don't want to sound like I'm sitting here wearing a tinfoil hat or anything, but I think OJ Simpson killed those people. That is preposterous. If the glove don't fit, you must acquit. Used to think all prisons were filled sociopaths and murderers, until I started interning at one and seeing it from the inside. There's definitely something shady going on with corporations and the free labor. Totally convinced our criminal justice system was designed to keep slavery around. That huge prison strike going on in the US, the biggest prison strike in US history, specifically said it was in order to end modern day slavery. Crap, California is losing tons of money from the strike as we speak. We shouldn't be losing tons of freaking money because our prisons are not working. That's just sick. There is absolutely no reason for contact cases to be as large as they are except to increase the amount of saline solution needed to cover your contact lenses. Big saline companies are out to get us. I get it. Saline and multipurpose solution are different. I don't necessarily agree with that, but if you follow the instructions on the bottle, they tell you to use an exorbitant amount of solution. You're supposed to rinse each for 10 seconds, both sides of each contact, the case, the mirror, your toothbrush, your cereal bowl and spoon. Take 2 bottles and spray it in the air whilst waving your hands back and forth. Soccer will never be popular in America because the broadcasters have no desire to create demand for it. It's essentially 45 minutes of commercial-free programming. Who wants that? Success of football and baseball is directly linked to their built-in ability to have breaks for commercials. Air those games all the time. The advertisers have chosen America's interest, and it is impossible to change without broadcast support. Similar reason no one wants to promote hockey in America because it really doesn't lend itself to broadcast advertising. That's kinda not right about hockey. Ads are a pain in the butt when you watch it in Canada. I got a 9/11 conspiracy, but not that one. I find it highly suspicious that they were in such a hurry to remove all the steel. Not because I believe that they are trying to cover up an explosion, but I do believe it's a conspiracy to hide insurance trouble. I do believe the steel beams weren't up to standards and thus failed before they should have done. Removing all traces of the steel beams avoided an insurance catastrophe. It's a conspiracy theory. Stop telling me why it's wrong. You won't convince me with silly stuff like facts or well thought out arguments. Yep, I believe this too. I remember hearing stories on the news after 9/11 about how there were issues with flame retardants and that there were shortcuts in the building of WTC. The World Trade Center was built in the 60s when the mob was more in control of unions, and to skim more money from the project, certain things internally were skipped. Things like fireproofing. In the early 1960s, Western nations led by Belgium and France, and probably abetted by the US, first toppled the democratically elected leader of the former Belgian Congo, then allowed that leader, Patrice Lumumba, to be executed. All because they thought Lumumba wasn't pro-West and anti-communist enough and that he might allow the Soviets to obtain uranium from his country. That one is some little discussed Cold War evil done by the West. Pretty crazy, but totally real. Beyonce was never really pregnant with Blue Ivy in 2011. Beyonce is highly controlling of her public image and is more than capable of pulling this off. Beyonce's pregnant belly inflated and deflated throughout her pregnancy. In one interview, her pregnant belly appears to collapse. In interviews, she would mess up and say inconsistent due dates, not messing up by a few days, but by a month. Despite being one of the most talked about celebrity pregnancies, there is no leaked information about the birth. During the birth, we know Beyonce and Jay sectioned off an entire wing of Lenox Hill Hospital. I can see wanting some privacy, but what were they hiding that they had to shut off a whole wing? Theory: Beyonce's career is highly dependent on her body and keeping it tight, or they might have fertility issues. Bey and Jay paid a surrogate to carry their baby, then shut down a whole wing of the hospital so no one would know Beyonce never gave birth and wouldn't see the surrogate. No photos were released of Bey shortly after the pregnancy because people would have been able to tell she hadn't just been pregnant. This got me looking so crazy right now. Osama bin Laden was executed and dumped in the ocean, Soprano style, because it was pragmatic to avoid the difficulties of incarceration before trial and what might come to light during the trial. I think they would have done so even if he had nothing damning to say at all, just to avoid giving him a public forum to rally supporters. There's a theory that Beyonce is 7 years older than she says she is. 1974 versus 1981. If you watch Destiny's Child videos from 98 or 99, does she look like a teenager or someone in her mid-20s? Plus Gabrielle Union slipped about Beyonce being the same age. She was getting popular the same time as Britney Spears, so she didn't want to be several years older. Public opinion has been intentionally manipulated to make people think conspiracy theories are for crazy people. Throughout history, powerful and wealthy people have conspired to increase their power and wealth. What makes today any different? We should be just as skeptical of the intentions and motivations of those who have the most influence in society as we are about claims that they're up to no good. Skepticism should go both ways. That Reddit's long-term business model is to catalog detailed data on people's personal interests and beliefs far better than social media like Facebook, and that they share the same aim to sell that data to advertisers for targeted ads. They can target me all they want, I'm too broke to buy crap. Mainstream media only report things for ratings, while they pass up on actual world news that could affect us, and they intentionally misinform people to make the situation and public outcry worse. Not even a theory, that's blatantly accurate. Military complex. I don't even think it's a conspiracy anymore, just something people accept. People, I'm not from the US, although their system is the most notable example of a successful military-industrial complex. It is something that many powerful nations dabble in. For those asking, the military-industrial complex is a system that depends on warfare for profit. Companies spend huge amounts of money bidding for defense contracts. Politicians are supported according to what they can do for the defense company. Eventually the politicians just become the de facto mouthpiece for defense corporations, awarding unnecessary contracts and even leading their nations into unnecessary wars. People below have given better explanations than that. It was something I've always been interested in but accepted as I became older. Seems to be the way of the world right now. Oswald did not act alone. The early 60s were a strange time. J. Edgar Hoover was the second most powerful man in the country. Organized crime was huge and ran a lot of things like unions. Kennedy wanted to normalize relations with Cuba and had just let USSR have their way in Berlin over simplification. I know. Most of the government and the military hated him. I have no theory on what did happen, but I am sure it didn't happen as we were told. The way Oswald was killed 2 days later is suspicious. The mysterious clown sightings that we've been hearing about are viral marketing for the new It movie. It just makes too much sense. I 100% believe that New Coke was a way for Coca-Cola to introduce high fructose corn syrup without people being overly upset. That the government intentionally made the public believe that anyone who believes any conspiracy also believe that we didn't go to the moon, the royal family are lizards, etc. What better way to instantly silence all questioning than to make everyone else laugh at the one asking? I am the farthest from a conspiracy theorist, but I truly believe that those home DNA test kits to find out your ancestry is actually run by or funded by the government to get copies or everyone's DNA for crime matching or for some nefarious reason. JFK took LSD. It was legal in his lifetime and was going to dissolve the CIA to weaken the military-industrial complex. He was killed by same complex using disgruntled CIA operatives and Cuban exiles upset about the Bay of Pigs. The same group was responsible for Watergate. Trump will lose to Clinton and a significant domestic terrorist threat event will occur and be linked to alt-right Trump supporters. This will lead to change laws, increased security and even further privacy erosion, all propped up on the war on domestic terror. It's also why the militarization of police has been happening. They're preparing for war. We can grow food so well now that we actually pay farmers not to grow food to keep food prices artificially high. We can grow enough food to feed everyone in the world many times over. We just don't because the economy would implode and there'd be no reason to keep on working terrible jobs for terrible reasons for terrible people. That when Apple releases a new iPhone they start creating mischief on old devices making you feel like you need to upgrade. That the US Military encouraged the Roswell alien conspiracy because they wanted to discredit anyone seeing strange aircraft in the area since, at the time, they were experimenting with new plane prototypes, like the U-2. The fact that they would develop the U-2 has been established. Suge Knight poisoned Eazy-E with AIDS to prevent him from regrouping NWA again and threatening his record company Death Row. He also had Tupac killed when it was rumored Tupac was going to want out of Death Row and used the guise of gang violence to try and pin the death on the notorious Big, who was subsequently killed in retaliation. I think that the Paul McCartney conspiracy was invented by the Beatles just to mess with people. The idea is that McCartney died in a car accident in 1966 and was replaced by a lookalike. There's a ton of hidden signs hinting to it all throughout their music. For example, on the Abbey Road album, he's the only one not wearing shoes. On Letter B, he's the only one with a red background. The story of him dying and being replaced by a perfect lookalike is pretty out there, so it was most likely a legend started by the Beatles. America is an oligarchy. The people don't have any control over what happens in politics. That's for our corporate overlords to decide. Not so much a conspiracy as a cover-up. I believe Robert Kennedy was accidentally shot by the security guard during the scuffle of the actual assassination attempt by Seren. Supposedly, the guard was the only one who could have had his gun close enough to RFK's head to induce the powder burns in the kill shot. The case was closed officially rather quickly, but evidence came out later raises more questions. The guard owned a .22 caliber that he sold sometime after the murder and was never recovered. A tape recorder in a journalist's pocket recorded more shots than bullets in Seren's gun, and the only photographs taken at the time were seized and sealed for decades. Then the government fought their release. Then they were mysteriously stolen the day they were to be delivered back to the photographer. I can see this being a national tragedy. There was certainly someone who meant to commit the crime. A well-meaning person was pulled into it involuntarily, and so there is no sense in making someone a devil when someone else deserved it more. So it was hushed up. The guard retired and refused interviews, and was allowed to live out his life quietly. A conspiracy that I don't really blame. Not somebody else's conspiracy, but I always thought the narrative that aspartame is bad for you was created by a rival company who couldn't compete with the larger soda companies. Same thing with GMOs. I have diabetes, and whenever I use an artificial sweetener I hear someone tell me that it is bad for me. Okay, maybe it is, but I know sugar is bad for me. JFK was not killed by one of Lee Harvey Oswald's bullets. Instead, the bullet that actually killed him was a stray shot from a Secret Service member who was shooting in Oswald's direction. Then the Secret Service covered up their mistake so they didn't look bad. I'm not totally convinced, but it seems the most plausible. Would explain why he first shots for Oswald did very little damage, while the killing shot exploded JFK's head, cause it was almost point blank. Also, two different kinds of bullets were found. The ones that Oswald was using were piercing type that stay together as they enter the body, while the one that hits JFK in the head fragmented on impact. Also explains why the one bullet seems to come from another direction. Here's one I believe has merit. The meta-conspiracy theory, that the term conspiracy theory is used to discredit certain information by associating it with absurd theories. If information about an event is labeled a conspiracy theory, the simple-minded majority will associate it with theories like lizard people run the world. Using the definitions below, we can see that there is a conspiracy theory to explain the terrorist attacks on 9/11, which is promoted by the 9/11 Commission and the US government as a whole. This theory is the one which the 9/11 Commission asserts to be true. Doubt over whether their version is true is skepticism. In that case, the government are conspiracy theorists. People who question the validity of those claims are skeptics. Definitions. Conspiracy, an agreement between two or more persons to engage jointly in an unlawful or criminal act. Theory, a proposed explanation whose status is still conjectural and subject to experimentation, in contrast to well-established propositions that are regarded as reporting matters of actual fact. Skeptic, a person who questions the validity or authenticity of something purporting to be factual. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.